Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday!
Let's go. That's
My
right.
wife
It's Front
jumped.
Office
She
Friday.
knows it's coming, and she still jumped.
You can't prepare for that. There are no preparations.
No, I guess you just got to go, man. Sometimes it's Friday.
That's
You got to
right.
be fired up.
That's right. It's Front Office Friday. Welcome in, everybody, to the show. We've got tons to talk about today on the NBA trade market. Hopefully, you are joining us. If you're joining us from someplace warm, we're even more jealous, or I am anyway. If you are joining us from work and you are kind of watching on the sly a little bit, you're doing the little thing, your head is in your hand like this, and you're hiding your headphones. Congratulations to you for being sneaky and being able to multitask a little bit and make it look like you're working. Join us here, have some lunch, and let's talk some NBA basketball. Keith, I'm excited for this show. I'm excited because we're getting so much closer to the deadline. It feels like every fan base right now is just buzzing in anticipation.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's now we're getting. It feels like every couple of days, some form of trade intel notebook is being released by somebody. So someone is putting things out there. Where it's there, you're starting to get some tweets and the like of just different little news tidbits, and it's great. It is funny. I was joking with some people yesterday. I said it's going to be like noon on deadline day, and people are going to be like, "Why is nothing happening? What's going on here?" And what's funny is it's like, well, because there were already like three big trades. Like they all factor in. So yeah, Trev approves us watching during classwork.
That's
yeah,
right.
he's right. Yeah.
100%.
I mean, hey, if you got to
I'll write you a
schedule a
note.
conference call Friday afternoons, like just clear out noon to whatever, just to make sure you can watch. Like we get it, right? It's just work sessions. They happen sometimes.
I'll also say this: if you work someplace that schedules anything for February 8th, which is the actual trade deadline, well, that's their own fault. That's not your fault. That's their fault for being dumb and scheduling something at a time when they know nobody's going to be paying attention. So don't feel bad if you are not locked in at work on February 8th. Again, that is your employer's fault.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I would just call it a career at that place and go work somewhere where they respect things. That's
right.
A proper workplace where they respect the world. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, this is great, man. We get a lot of super chats rolling in already. So this is awesome. Doug Not Dave says he shortened a business meeting to be here today. It's good to be the boss. So hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. That's what you need to do to be here. We're all about it. So yeah, it's a. But you're right, man. It is a crazy time of year. A million things going on, lots of rumors, and I'm excited to get into all of them.
All right, let's start here. Adam said there's a rumor that the Cavs are interested in acquiring Royce O'Neal or DeAndre Hunter. What would it take for them to acquire either of them? Well, Keith, right now, the asking price for everybody, well, for players that you probably would think aren't quite worth it, it's a first-round pick, right? That's what every team wants for every rotation. 10th guy on the roster, first-round pick. That will probably change as we get closer to the trade deadline. I think these are two very different players, though. Let's start with DeAndre Hunter, because I think that's an interesting one. The Hawks are motivated to make a deal. He's got a lot of money tied up, but it's not, I mean, he's making like a little over $20 million for each of the next few seasons. I want to say he's got, off the top of my head, he's got like 4 more seasons under contract, which is a decent amount. What is his trade value? Does he still have, I mean, he's putting up points in the teens. It's not like he's a terrible player. I could see where teams would be a little bit concerned about how long-term the deal is, though.
Yeah, he never developed into like that shutdown wing stopper that I think they thought he might become. Really somebody who could defend 2 through 4, really take on the other team's opposing best scorer and really just take them out of the game. He never became that. He's not a bad defender, but he's maybe at best a slightly above average defender. And then he's an okay shooter. He's okay off the dribble, but he just hasn't turned into being a really good player. And that's the problem. And now his contract, I'm not going to say it's like hugely negative or anything. It's $20 million this year. By the end, it'll be almost $25 million. But it's just not a great deal. And that's kind of why they're looking to move. Now, I think we could be in a place where the Cavs bring him in. He's their 5th best guy, probably, and most of their better lineup constructions, and that's not bad if they feel like they can afford it. The problem is getting there to the money. So the Cavs I forget who asked the question here. Adam is right. The Cavs are all over looking for big wing help. So guys like Connor O'Neal make a lot of sense for them. They're just a little bit tradable salary is not great for the Cavs. They've got Isaac Okoro's expiring 8.9 million is probably the best thing they can offer up in trade, unless they're going to do something like, hey, where we're going to move off Karis LeVert and rebalance that way. But right now, you kind of need LeVert because you need the on-ball creation ability while Darius Garland is still out. So it's just a little hard for the Cavs to make trades.
That's the challenge for them. Let's jump over though to the Nets, because he did ask about Royce O'Neal as well. Royce O'Neal, very different commitment here with Royce O'Neal, just $9.5 million expiring. So this is the kind of thing where, do you really want to spend what it would cost to get and make the commitment you would have to make to Hunter if you could get Royce O'Neal instead? If I'm the Cavs, and I think DeAndre Hunter is probably the better of the two, certainly the higher upside of the two, but in terms of keeping that future flexibility, Royce O'Neal may be the guy to target here.
Yeah, I think so. It's much easier to trade for him at only 9.5 million. That would be Okoro gets you Royce O'Neal. And I'm not saying that's a match perfect between these two teams, but just from the salary matching standpoint, that gets you in the door with him. Just while you have the spot track piece up, somebody asked me this the other day. They're like, what does the percentage under the number mean? They're asking, is that like a bonus in the contract or anything? That percentage is the percentage of the cap that those contracts count for. So that's why we do that. We don't put them on the cap holds, which are anything in blue, where you see it noted out there, but that's what the percentage is. So you see a guy like Royce O'Neal, 9.5 million, 7%. 7% is the 7% of the salary cap is 9.5 million.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that I really like about Spot Track too, because while it may be difficult to eventually get all the way there, I mean, we're always going to look at exactly how much a salary is. For our purposes, sometimes it's more informative to look at what percentage of the cap the player takes up, because that can remove some of the sticker shock that we see when the salary cap keeps rising.
Yeah, somebody said in chat too. Lawrence said Cavs have a TPE for Rubio. They don't. They just waived Rubio, so they don't. They actually don't have any TPE. So they're sitting kind of in a spot where they got a match in salary, and they are, like I said, they're running out of matching salary. That was why we had suggested for a while maybe they keep Rubio on the books as matching salary, but it sounded like everybody just wanted to get moved on from that situation, and that's why they ended up ultimately doing a buyout.
All right. Clippers trade rumors. I mean, I haven't seen a lot. The Clippers have salaries that they can move, and they'll be aggressive if the right deal comes up, but they've been playing so well. I don't think they feel like they have to make any kind of a move. They're the type of team that right now they've been in such a good position that they can essentially just, if a deal is not exactly to their liking, they can just step away and say, we're already really good. We don't have to do this right now. So that, I think that's part of why we don't see a ton of Clippers rumors out there at the moment.
Yeah, PJ Tucker is the one guy that they're maybe looking to move to make an upgrade. There's been some talks of he could move in a trade for, it sounds like they want another forward-sized player, kind of what they think they hoped PJ Tucker would be for them, but for whatever reason, he is not going to be. So I think that's where they're in a spot. So I think what we really can look for with them is we can move him. They're going to move him and bring in a player like that, and then PJ Tucker probably gets bought out wherever he goes. And then you're looking at Bucks, Heat, they've already been mentioned as teams, and because he makes less than the non-taxpayer mid-level at only about 11 million, any team can sign PJ Tucker, even if they're up and over the apron. So that becomes a place where that's very likely that would be how that plays out. But as it stands right now, they're just going to kind of hold firm. There was a thought of maybe they could do like PJ Tucker and Mason Plumlee to bring in more money, but they need Mason Plumlee right now because Zubac is out for like a month. So
Yep.
I would say maybe a PJ Tucker trade, but that's probably deadline week at the earliest that something like that happens, if not all the way down to like deadline day or maybe the day before.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Matthew Harrison said, I'm sure most contenders could use Boyan or Burks, but what teams are most desperate for a wing shooter? Keep up the great work. Who was it that I was just seeing earlier today that was really looking for help on the wings? I mean, there's a lot of teams that would say that'll say, give us all the wings you can get.
Sure.
But does anybody pop to mind immediately as a team that you think really is out there looking for wings?
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota, I think, could use another wing scorer to come off the bench. That's where like a guy like Burks would make a lot of sense for them. They were hoping Shake Milton might have been that guy for them. He never really developed into that type of player. It just hasn't worked for whatever reason. Houston is still looking to add another guy who can score consistently. That's a piece that they're missing. Philadelphia is in the mix for if they can add another player who can put the ball in the basket. Ideally, it's more like a creator shooter with size type, but that's what both of these guys fit. I don't know where Indiana's going to go now. Indiana still has trade pieces that they could use, and then you like Brad Stevens on the record said we'd like a shooter with some size, like a big wing. Milwaukee would love that. Phoenix would love that, but those teams don't really have anything to trade. So that's probably the trickier part there for those guys. But yeah, I do have a sense. I think this is the year Detroit does trade at least one of these two guys. Probably more likely Burks because he's an expiring contract. But we'll see. I think there's a real chance that they'll get that figured out.
Dallas was the team that I saw this morning. That was a team that was looking for wings as well.
I think Dallas,
that's another team to keep an eye on.
When healthy, is a little bit better because they seem committed to when he's back on the floor starting Exum, and then you still have Tim Hardaway Jr. there, and Tim Hardaway Jr. has actually played really, really well over the last almost month now. So, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, you ask any team, they're going to tell you, yeah, well, like you said, we'll take another wing. Of course, it's just what do we have to do to give up to get one?
Stan says, love you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you, Stan. Our biggest fan, Stan.
It is another big, like, phenomenal beard. Like, a lot of phenomenal beards here, Front Office Friday fans.
Bearded Front Office fans.
Yeah, there it is.
Who fits best and is most likely to get for the Celtics? Conchar, Nick Richards, or Najee Marshall?
Yeah, Conchar's been talked about ad nauseum. Like, it felt like for a while the Grizzlies just had a lot of guys at that position. Then it was all right, the Grizzlies are now kind of healthy. He's not really playing. And I think people thought he could be somebody who really could come in and step in. I kind of have the feeling of if Boston wanted him, that might already be done. So I'm not so sure that's the one. Najee Marshall would be a nice player, but I think the challenge with that one is he's not a great shooter. So that is the one part where they don't want to put non-shooters on the floor. And I don't really have a great sense of what New Orleans would need for him. I feel like New Orleans could legit be like, hey, we kind of need a first-round pick just because he's a big part of our rotation in covering when a bunch of other guys are hurt. Nick Richards, yeah, very acquirable contract at about $5 million.
Yep, I like him.
The challenge for Boston is that's it, right? You kind of get him, and then you're probably not getting anybody else. And that becomes a little bit of I just don't know that they're that desperate to add another center. But there's a lot of teams I think should be in on Nick Richards because I think he could help a whole bunch of teams. And he's the kind of guy you can acquire. And because he makes so little money, it almost does nothing to impact your tax cap situation moving forward. You should be able to get him and just move along. So of those choices, I would say Najee Marshall makes the most sense. I just don't know that they'll pay what it takes to get him.
I am secretly hoping my Lakers can get in on Nick Richards as a backup five. I think his contract is great. He's locked up for a few years. That's fantastic. I think he could wind up being a steal for somebody if they're able to go get him. on the trade market. I don't know exactly if I'm Charlotte that I would move him, but I guess it would depend on what the offer is coming in. Of course, they've got Mark Williams there in the middle as well. All right.
Charlotte's kind of put the open for business light on. Like they're ready to go. If it don't ask about LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, or Mark Williams, and they're willing to have a conversation on just about anybody. I kind of wonder if semi-related PJ Washington becomes somebody that someone goes and gets. He's been coming off the bench there. I think they're pretty committed to, at least for now, where we're gonna start Miller, Rozier, Ball, Williams when healthy, and Bridges, and then we'll see what happens when Gordon Hayward comes back. Does Miller go back to the bench? Does Hayward come off the bench? We'll see what that looks like. But Washington hasn't been able to get into the starting group even when other guys are out. So I think he's a chance somebody should really try to grab if they can, because he's on a really good contract.
All right, let's go to Jeremy. Said, happy front office Friday. Happy front office Friday to you. I love Siakam to the Pacers, and I think they could be a move away from being a serious contender. Who do you think they could target at the deadline or the offseason? Then let's take a step back here. Conceptually, what is it the Pacers could really use now that you've added Pascal Siakam to the roster? You've got Tyrese Halliburton. What is it that you need the most?
It's weird because it sounds like when you answer a question this way, it means I'm like, they're perfect. They need nothing. Right. But they don't really need a whole lot. Another wing defender would be good for them, I think. Just somebody who can, I feel like Aaron Nesmith is going to be asked to do a lot of heavy lifting there in Indiana, especially come playoff time. And he's a good defensive player. I just think that becomes a challenge for him to take that on kind of all himself. So I think one more wing defender, and that oddly enough, right, Bruce Brown was the guy for them. They can't get him back, but if they really wanted to throw in a young player in picks, like Alex Caruso would be great for them. I think he'd be a phenomenal fit in Indiana, because I think he'd also really fit with just that up-tempo style of push the ball, get in the paint, can find a shooter, make a play, trail the play, hit trailing threes, and those sorts of things. They could be like a Najee Marshall type of team where they could go get somebody like that. I think if Orlando wanted to do a little bit of like a rebalancing trade, I think like Gary Harris could make a lot of sense there if they could find the right thing to send back to the Magic. Maybe if Orlando wanted to get like another big to put in the mix, you could almost maybe do something like, they don't as much need Obi Toppin now, so maybe you could do Obi Toppin and something for Gary Harris could make sense both ways. But yeah, they've still got some tradable salary. They've got really, they're out the one extra pick after this year's draft, so they've got draft picks they can move. They have that second they picked up in that trade, so I think Indiana's in pretty good shape if they want to do one more thing. I think Buddy Hield stays now. That's a complete guess. But that's just a guess. And I'm not going to be surprised if we see Buddy Hield end up inking an extension before this year is over with the Pacers, if they kind of come back around. Because Buddy Hield may now be looking at it and saying, free agency doesn't look so hot. Like, I don't know that I want to go that route. And we're going to be pretty good. We get some good guys. If there's the right kind of deal on the table, yeah, maybe I can just stick around here in Indiana.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a surprise to see at this point, even though we've been hearing Buddy Hield trade rumors since literally the beginning of the season. But
since he was with the Kings.
Well, yes. I mean, we've been hearing Buddy Hield trade rumors forever. But I mean, it's specifically with this Indiana team. They've been looking at moving him since right before the season started. But yeah, wouldn't be a shock if they hung on to him.
He was a 24 or maybe 26-year-old at the same season. I don't know. I'm not sure.
He may have been 35. We don't know. We're not really sure.
Hey, if he shoots the way he shoots, I don't really care how old he is. Just keep putting the ball in the hoop.
Yeah, and everything will be just fine. That's all you have to do. I look at the Pacers and I think, well, it feels like in terms of firepower, they're like a decent sized move away, but just conceptually in terms of skill sets, I think you're right. There's not a lot that you look at this roster and say, oh, they need this or they need that. I look at them and think, what about I mean, like a Dorian Finney-Smith as a landing spot for him, that could be interesting as well in terms of a wing defender. It depends on how much you buy his defensive capabilities on the wing, of course, but that type of player that is still going to give you some floor spacing on the other end, but can give you some pretty high level defense, that could do something for them.
And can play the 4 and the 5. I don't know how
Yeah.
much 3 he seems to have lost a little bit of foot speed, so I'm not sure how much 3 he's playing. But Royce O'Neal mentioned earlier in the show, like that's a guy I think could help them for sure if they wanted to go that direction. So yeah, there are a lot of different options that they could go through in Indiana, which is a great spot to be in. And none of them feel like they are, man, we got to go make the big move because they did it already, and they did it with keeping a lot in hand to still make trades with, which is huge.
Richard said, Trevor, what's the deal with the Lakers' interest in Colin Sexton? Isn't he just Russell Westbrook light? No, because he's efficient. He is way more efficient than Russell Westbrook. Also, they're just very, very different players. I mean, Russell Westbrook is a passer on a level that Colin Sexton is not. Both of them are athletic and can get to the rim, but Colin Sexton is a much more efficient, much more dangerous guy on his pull-up, on his three-point jumper. Russell Westbrook, you're much more willing to live with him shooting those threes. But Russ is more of a point guard, whereas Colin Sexton is more of a 2. You may say he's in a point guard's body, but he's more of a scoring guard. That's what he looks to do first and foremost. He doesn't have the vision, doesn't have the passing talent that Russell Westbrook has. So it's a very, very different style of player. I think it's closer. You're closer to looking at Colin Sexton as more in the line of like a Malik Monk, a Lou Williams, or someone like that, rather than a Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot to add to that. We talked about it yesterday, so you can go watch yesterday's show. There are moves that make sense for the Lakers to get Colin Sexton, but there's bigger needs, in my opinion, than going that route. But I like Colin Sexton quite a bit. He's a guy I'm a big fan of.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we've been talking about him literally for years.
Yeah.
Robert Gonzalez. So Jovan just put out a piece, Buha, who was on my show that I published this morning, said, did you guys see the latest trade offer between Hawks and Lakers? D'Lo, JHS, a 2029 first, and more draft compensation for Murray today. Yeah, I mean, that goes along with what I had been hearing on that front. That was what the Lakers were looking to do. The Hawks, of course, want Austin Reeves. Everybody I've talked to within the Lakers have said that we're not going to trade Austin Reeves, at least not for Murray. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, maybe they'll talk again before the trade deadline, but I think if it comes down to a hard line, Austin Reeves or no deal, I think the Lakers are going to say no deal.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know that that's the wrong answer either, and I'm not fully sold on Austin Reeves becomes an all-star. I think Austin Reeves is a very good, nice player. It becomes Austin Reeves plus the draft compensation, which, let's face it, that draft compensation, I mean, I have to assume that's post LeBron at this point. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he plays another 10 years. Who knows? But I would assume that's post LeBron, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do Reeves and late draft picks down the line for a guy who is a good player, but you run into some of the same issues here. It's not like he comes to the Lakers and is, all right, LeBron, you take back seat now. I'm going to have the ball. I'm going to run everything through you. He could definitely help the Lakers. There's things. If it was this package, done. Yeah, I would probably do it. This is okay to me. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over this. But you swap out D'Lo for Reeves. That's probably too far the other direction.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. Steven said, hey, Trevor and Keith, who would win in a fight, John Wick or the Equalizer? Best regards.
Man, I haven't watched the Equalizer in a long time, and I'm gonna admit something here. It's probably gonna get me a lot of hate. I've only ever seen the first John Wick movie.
Okay.
I haven't seen beyond them. I didn't even get to see the one with Boban in it. Was that the third one? I
don't recall. Like I think I've seen the first two, and I've seen bits and pieces of the third one.
Yeah, I liked it. It's one of those ones. John Wick, in the Fast and Furious movies are on my list every summer, and then I just never seem to get to them. And it's stupid because I'll then sit and I'll watch Gladiator for the 800th time, or Marvel movies for the, who knows, I've lost count number of times, and it's like, I should just watch these other movies. So I'll defer to you. You probably have a better idea, but I mean,
Well, there
off of what I
is,
saw, probably go with John Wick.
yeah, there is a third Equalizer movie out now.
Yeah,
It's on our list to watch. Have not watched it yet, but I would go John Wick as well. I mean, if he's thinking he's back, I'm thinking he's back, which means I think he gets the win. I think he gets the win. I
yeah.
think he finds a way
All right, let
to
us
get
know
it
in the
done.
chat.
I mean, he is the boogeyman. He killed people with a pencil. Like
Yeah,
that's a thing. So
yeah. I mean,
with a
so did the
pencil.
Joker too, right?
Well, that's
Like,
true.
yeah.
That's true. Want to see a
I
magic
can't
trick?
wait till we start. It's like deadline day and we get that first trade and we can all fire off the Joker meme on
Here
Twitter.
we
It's
go.
going to be awesome.
That will be. Any chance the Lakers can get Schroeder and Otto? Why Otto? Like I get Otto Porter Jr. like a few years ago, but like he's not getting much in the way of minutes here. So yes, I'm sure. I'm sure, but could they get Dennis Schroeder? I think that's the bigger question. Would the Raptors be willing to move on from him? Sure, but what are you trading for him? And are you just bringing him back in and saying, "Hey, Gabe Vincent, you only played 5 games. See you later," and we're going to bring Dennis back? Is that the path you're going down, or is this like you trade D'Angelo Russell in another deal and then you're going to bring in Schroeder? So it all depends on what else is happening with this team. I'd be surprised if it happens, but I mean, Darvin Ham is a big fan of Dennis Schroeder, so you never know.
Yeah, I think if that's a good point. If you did a deal where Russell went out to another team and then you brought in, and you didn't bring back another ball handler, then I could see Gabe Vincent for Schroeder being a thing. And that's, yeah, you have to swallow hard a little bit and say, hey, it didn't work out with Gabe Vincent, because you're gonna have to put something else in there. You're gonna have to. It might be as easy as like throw in Max Christie or Jalen Hood-Schifino. It seems like that's going a little too far, but you're gonna have to give something else because it's not just gonna be Vincent for Schroeder. But yeah, if you're there, Otto Porter Jr. Celtics fans have said the same thing because he fits into the Grant Williams trade exception. So there's stuff where people are like, yeah, let's get him. He hasn't been healthy for a couple years, and I think that's residual carryover from he was a big part of the Warriors winning that title. And I think people were like, yeah, let's go get him, like, there. So that if somebody gets Otto Porter Jr., that's like a 2:30 on deadline day kind of move where it's like, all right, we'll take him and see what it looks like. It's almost like a pre-buyout maneuver in that sense.
Right. It really is. Yeah, exactly. Senpai NFT said, saw Keith on the show with Magic HQ and feel they can really use a D'Lo type of player. Also does a Rui Hayes for Bruce deal work money-wise. So Bruce Brown, Rui, and Jackson Hayes. Off the top of my head, that should, as I recall, Bruce Brown's right around 20 million. Rui's at 15 and change. Jackson Hayes just under 3. It'd be close.
I don't think I'd do that though. I don't want to give up Rui Hachimura's size.
That's fair.
Because if I don't want to, I'm not trying to be Mr. like, let me make fun of the Lakers, but I'm a little like, are we counting on AD and LeBron not getting hurt the whole rest of the year, not missing a month? One of the two of them. If that happens, you need Rui Hachimura because that's it. You put him in there, he's at least going to get you 15 points and 8 rebounds a night while those guys are out. Like he doesn't replace them, but you need him because you don't have anybody else who can do anything like what they do on the right. Then you're like, here comes a whole lot of Taurean Prince otherwise.
Right.
So I don't think I would do that trade. I like Bruce Brown for the Lakers in a lot of ways. There's other constructions I might be chasing after if I was them. The Magic use D'Lo. I don't know. I don't want the Magic to add a guard who needs the ball quite as much as D'Lo does to be really successful, because I think that takes away too much from what makes Paolo and Franz so special. I want somebody who supplements them and adds and enhances what they can do. So I think a guy like Malcolm Brogdon makes a little bit more sense for the Magic if you're going for a similar type of player. contract wise and production wise, I would probably go that route before I would do something for D'Angelo Russell.
All right. Doug, not Dave McMenamin, said, Keith, you're on a roll. Where's the breaking deal?
I don't know what that means.
Remember last live show we did, we went live because we were sitting down as the Pascal Siakam trade broke.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for the
I get it.
the
I
live
get it.
show
Because I was
breaking
on the
news.
Pistons show and they had the trade too. Yeah, I know, man. Know what'll happen today? It'll be right after we hit end show. Like then
That's when it'll happen.
That's when it'll pop today. Or yeah, I'm getting in the car at 2:45 to go do school pickup. So probably then if anything happens today. To being serious, I think we're probably not going to see anything else big for another week or so, at least. I think things will now. Siakam got traded. Anybody who is in on him, now there's a reset period that happens. Most trade deadline activity picks up trade deadline week. Now that's more likely when we'll see things go.
By the way, folks, we've got a lot of people in here. If you are not a subscriber to the YouTube channel yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications as well. We're going to keep you up to date on everything leading all the way up to that February 8th trade deadline. We'll be live during the deadline itself to break down all the deals as they come in. So again, hit that subscribe button on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And everybody live in the room right now, do me a favor. Right now, hit that like button. Let's get this out to as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah, we appreciate the Siakam one. You guys all got that over 1,000 likes. So that's big. Let's try to do that here. We've got over 1,000 people watching right now. Just helps it get out there and for people to find the show. On deadline day, too, just so everybody knows, if there is one of those trades that goes down at like 10 in the morning Eastern time, we will probably not go live for that trade unless it's like, oh my God, LeBron got traded to the Hornets. Sure. Like, what are we doing? Like, we have to get live for that. And that's a bad example because you'd have to be live somewhere else for that one, probably for the rest of the day. If probably, not weekend and year and everything else.
My wife wouldn't see me for like a month if that happened.
Right, exactly. You would come back to front off show with one of those magnificent beards.
I would.
But no, what we do deadline day is it'll probably be right around 1:30 Eastern, about an hour-ish, 2 hours ahead of the deadline, and we'll catch up with everything that happened earlier in the day. Sometimes it's like overnight the night before. We'll catch up there and then react live as deals come in. We usually stay live until about 4 o'clock Eastern or so as things trickle in after because we have to do the requisite. It only matters if you're in the queue. Like, it doesn't matter if the deal is you already reported or not. So kind of things.
You just have to be in line at that point. Okay. Do you think the Lakers get DeJounte? I mean, I think they have a shot, but again, if it becomes a hard line in the sand of it's Austin Reeves or no deal, I think the Lakers' response would be no deal. So it really depends on what other offers are out there and how motivated are the Hawks to move him right now. Do they have an appetite to just wait until the summer? So I think it's always less likely that a trade is going to happen than it's happening. You know, I mean, just in terms of percentages, if I had to throw a percentage on it, I mean, 40% chance it happens, 60% chance it doesn't, something like that. Obviously, they've talked. Obviously, there's interest. They're supposed to talk again ahead of the deadline. But if it's Austin Reeves or nothing, I'm pretty confident from everybody I've talked to, the Lakers are going to say, no, thank you.
I think the longer it goes without DeJounte Murray getting traded, the more likely it is the Lakers could maybe get him without trading Austin Reeves. Just because I don't think the Hawks are going to get desperate and give him away, but I think it just becomes more likely the Hawks say, all right, we'll take the D'Angelo Russell deal. Maybe we'll straighten out our salary cap a little bit and we'll move forward that way. So I think that's more likely. I don't know. I think today, you're right. I think the Hawks would say it's got to be Austin Reeves. And if it isn't, we're content to hang in there for now.
All right. DB Farr said DeJounte Murray back to the Spurs doesn't sound bad now, does it?
He was the one who said this, I think, a week or two ago, and we're kind of like, he's not going back to Spurs. What are you talking about? So, yeah, I'm glad he checked in on Twitter and reminded us.
There we go. Dark horse teams, Brooklyn or Golden State. Sure. I mean, I've heard both teams in connection with it, but they've been connected with a lot of players. Both are teams to keep an eye on that could make a big move here at the deadline. DeJounte Murray back to the spot. I mean, DeJounte loves Greg Popovich, and so he wouldn't mind going back for that reason. If he's under a long-term contract, so I could see it in that you're getting a pretty young player still that you can have on your team for the next 3-4 years, which that's forever in today's NBA. So I could see the reasoning for it. I just don't like, is DeJounte really good? Because realistically, if you're DeJounte Murray, you go back to the Spurs, you're probably talking about, you're obviously not winning this season. You're probably not winning next season either. You're probably talking about a couple of seasons from now is when you can really, start going and doing something. Is he really on board with that, despite how much love he's going to throw to Greg Popovich? Maybe he is. Maybe that's totally fine with him. Everybody has different priorities, but I'd still want to see that before I would believe it.
Yeah, a lot depends on what they'd have to give up to get him, because that's where it could get a little weird too. But yeah, I think DeJounte Murray makes sense there, just from the standpoint of, all right, now we're kind of locking into, at least for the shortish term, a core of Murray, Vassell, and obviously Wembanyama. That's okay to me. I'm all right with that being kind of my starting point there, and then everything after that is, all right, we just got to find the right complementary pieces around those guys. So I'm okay with that. Brooklyn, I don't mind the Brooklyn idea. Honestly, they don't have a long-term answer at point guard. It is a spot where they could use somebody. I do kind of wonder if Brooklyn's going to almost pivot the other way, where it is, hey, let's clear out some of the guys that aren't Bridges and Johnson, and let's see what we could kind of work through with that after we trade that, versus let's take on salary right now. So we'll see, where this one goes. But I don't know, man. It feels like Murray's gonna get traded here in the next 2+ weeks, as we're under 3 weeks now till the deadline.
Senpai said, our CP3 and Gordon Hayward legit buyout candidates. Gordon Hayward, if he doesn't get moved, would be a buyout candidate. Chris Paul, if he does get moved, would be a buyout candidate, depending on where he goes. If he doesn't get bought out, or if he doesn't get moved, I don't think he's a buyout candidate.
Yeah, and the challenge for both of those guys, if they're bought out, they can't go to some of the very best teams in the league. They, like, Gordon Hayward would make a ton of sense for Phoenix, Milwaukee, Boston as a big wing who can play and step in. And they're also good enough that if he gets hurt, you just kind of wash your hands and say, all right, well, we tried, but he can't go there because he makes too much money. So he's got to find the right kind of team. It's got to be that team that is good, but isn't up and over the apron, because that would be the challenge for them. So that's the sticky point here with either one of those guys. If they're bought out, I still think it's far more likely we just see both of their contracts expire at the end of the year. And in the case of CP3, he gets waived because he has that non-guaranteed year next year. I think that's the way it goes, unless the Warriors can find a way, hey, we're going to attach him and we're going to get into some different money. If they kind of really pivot hard and say, hey, we could take on this player and this guy's going to lift us right now. But nobody seems to have a real great sense of where the Warriors are headed. And obviously right now they're dealing with all the turmoil from the passing of the assistant coach. So it's kind of bigger things going on in Golden State right now. And we'll see when they get back and rolling here in another week or so. I mean, they'll be back before then, but it might, their trade deadline may come all the way down to deadline week or deadline day before we have a real sense of what they're doing, just because they're focused other places right now, as they should be.
Absolutely. And that's the important part, as they should be. They've got other things to deal with. Mr. Easley, speaking of the Warriors, said, if the Warriors decide to blow it up, what do they do with Steph? If they don't blow it up, what happens with Clay and Green? Also, what basketball moment brought you the most joy? Okay, so what do they do with Steph? I mean, I think they keep him.
Yeah.
I think they keep him. That's it.
Unless Steph says, I want to go too. That's the only way you ever trade him.
Yeah.
You don't trade Stephen Curry unless he asks to be traded.
They might wind up trading Clay. They might wind up trading Draymond. I don't think they're going to, but they might. Steph, they are not trading. It would take him saying, please trade me for him to be traded.
Yeah. Yeah, you just don't do it. He is as synonymous with that franchise as any player has been in NBA history. Like, it's just, he is a Golden State Warrior. He's the greatest player in franchise history, and that's just where you go now. Now you're not moving him unless he says, "All right, I'm done. Send me somewhere else." And then it would have to also at that point be obviously a move that makes sense. Maybe in the last year of his deal, if he wants that, you as thank you for your service here. You try to take care of him. But yeah, I like the last part of the question. I mean, this is no one's gonna know this moment. I was a high school assistant coach, and we won a state tournament game on a half court buzzer beater. And that was that was easily the most joy I've ever had in the game of basketball. Like we went absolutely bonkers and it was crazy. And it just came out of nowhere because it was a huge upset. We were a major underdog in the state tournament in Massachusetts. It looked like we were gonna lose big. We hung in there the whole game. We had a lead late. The other team came back and then won it on this buzzer beater 3-pointer. And that was the coolest thing. If we stick to stuff people know, it probably is the 2008 championship and Kevin Garnett. Just I'll never forget the game, the play where Kevin Garnett had the massive follow dunk. And like the whole arena went on, and all you could hear, even through the TV, was him screaming at the top of his lungs as he threw it down. It was just one of those plays where, like, at that moment, I was like, "It's over. They're winning the title. This series is done." Like that's probably it for NBA wise.
I had that feeling in that series, like early in that series, that it was pretty much done. It was going to take some type of miracle for that not to go down. And I'll say, obviously, 2010 Game 7 was, I mean, unbelievable. It was the best worst game I think we've ever seen.
Oh God, what a mess!
It was an ugly, beautiful game that I'll certainly never forget. But that's certainly one of them. I mean, from a non-specifically basketball level, I think seeing the way specifically Lakers fans really rallied around each other after Kobe passed, that's something that I'll never forget. It always gives me goosebumps whenever I talk about how many people reached out to each other, that were helping each other out, because everybody was experiencing that same thing, that same grief, that struggle, and seeing how many people really came together to support each other during that very, very difficult time. That's certainly something that obviously you think of mostly in a negative light, but the way we saw it bring people together was a big positive, seeing so many people supportive of each other. So that's something there. But in terms of actually on the court, I'd probably go with 2010 Game 7. All right, Ollie said, will the Warriors re-sign Kerr, or is he done there? I think that might come down to what do they do with their players. Do they keep Clay? Do they keep Draymond? Do they keep stuff? Because if they do, then they probably keep Kerr too. And if they do some type of big tear it down, everybody wants out type situation, then you move on.
Yep. Yeah, I think even if you're doing we're going to reset around Steph and anything else moves, you may still see it be a spot where, hey, let's move on from Steve Kerr and go with that. So I see Sin Nick is saying we skipped his super chat. We've got there. It's still there. We'll get.
I'm still getting to him.
Yeah, we're working through them.
Yeah, I'm right here. I'll do that one right now. In fact, I don't necessarily go in order of how they're submitted. By the way, which by the way, have you noticed Knicks fans in our chat think that we're somehow biased against them or something like that?
Oh, I haven't noticed that.
That we're not talking enough about the Knicks.
I mean, I grew up in Boston, so it's probably a fair guess.
Content creators and fans debating best fit: DeJounte, Brogdon, Clarkson, with Fournier, Grimes, and picks going out. Thoughts? I don't like the DeJounte fit there.
No, I think it's a more the same of what it is in Atlanta.
Exactly.
Brogdon, great fit.
Yep. That would be my pick, between the guy who can play off ball, can shoot well. Clarkson needs the ball in his hands to go and attack and be kind of more of an off the bench scorer type. But I think Brogdon would be a great fit if he can stay healthy.
That's the key part. So yeah, I think it's I would maybe go Brogdon. I do wonder if they're thinking bigger though. Are they thinking a nice role player to come in? Or are they thinking let's go bigger? Let's let's hang on to Fournier and Grimes and the draft picks, and let's make that part of a bigger package, maybe this summer for somebody else. So yeah, I don't hate the idea of Brogdon. The Murray one, that one's never really made sense for me for the Knicks, because I just Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, you're just looking at a lot more of the same there. And I don't know. I certainly don't want to take the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands anymore than it already is on occasion. So no, let's go. In that game, man, Jalen Brunson was awesome last night. He just, he did the way at his size, he can just get where he needs to go to get his shots off. And he's so strong. He's such a strong finisher with the ball. I love watching him play.
He is absolutely incredible. It's amazing the things that he pulls off out there. He's absolutely fantastic. He's great. And much, the Mavs definitely made a mistake in letting him get away the way that they did, because he is he is a joy to watch on a night in, night out basis. That's for sure. Yeah. Keith, let me hit you with some numbers here. This is why why I don't think DeJounte Murray is a good fit there. Beyond just, okay, it's not working with Trae and everything, it's such a pronounced difference. DeJounte Murray, when he's played point guard for the Hawks this season, the net is plus 5.2. DeJounte, and this is per Cleaning the Glass, DeJounte Murray, when he's been off ball as the shooting guard, so that means playing alongside Trae Young, the net is minus 5.8. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other factors we have to consider. Sure. There's defense. There's all kinds of things we mix into that. But still, the bottom line is, DeJounte Murray, he's at his best when he's playing the point guard role and the ball's in his hands and he's not playing off ball. On the Knicks, he'd be playing off ball a bunch. You're running into the same problem that the Hawks have right now.
It's very funny how sometimes trades go down or signings and we are like, man, that is weird. Like, if it goes wrong, here's how it will go wrong. And then it goes wrong in exactly that way. And that's exactly what happened with Murray. There are a time where we said Murray and Trae Young's a weird fit. Like, Murray's going to play off the ball, or is Trae going to accept an off-ball role? And all that. And we're like, if it doesn't work perfectly, like, it could get really messy. And it hasn't worked perfectly, and it's gotten really messy. So there we are.
D-Rock said, what's a fair deal for my Brooklyn Nets to acquire DeJounte and Wendell Carter or Rui Hachimura without trading Claxton and Cam Thomas?
I don't know that you're getting Murray without trading at least Cam Thomas. Carter or Hachimura?
I mean, it depends on what kind of draft capital you want to attach, really.
That's it. You can throw in, some of the draft, like those further out Suns picks, like, that probably gets a deal done definitely for Carter or Hachimura. I think, the Magic or Lakers would be like, oh, you want to give us Royce O'Neal to match salary and go Dorian Finney-Smith and give us one or two of those Suns picks? Like, done. But that's too much for the Nets. Right. So and the Murray, I'd be careful. Like, if I was the Hawks, that's what I'd want. I'd be like, all right, give me matching salary and give me, again, one or two of those Nets picks that are Suns picks that are further out. Let's go. Because, I mean, no matter what, I think we think of the Suns 5 to 7 years from now. Like, they're not going to be this.
Durant will be gone. Bradley Beal will be gone.
Beal probably won't be playing. And Devin Booker's great, but let's see what it looks like. So, I don't know.
All right. Sleeper finals picks. That's interesting. I'll say this, I guess we may have to stretch the definition of sleeper on this. Because, I don't feel like we could say the Heat just find ways to win in the postseason.
Yeah.
But they were just there, like, do we really consider them a sleeper at this point, even though they're the 6th seed? I think the Pacers maybe are a true sleeper. Maybe things really click with Pascal Siakam and somehow they find their way through. Their offense gets hot at the right time. And then in a similar way, over in the West, I would put the Dallas Mavericks as my sleeper, particularly if they can find a move. Not that I think that they are a championship caliber team, but they shoot so many threes, the second most threes in the NBA. If they go on a hot streak from behind the arc, they're really difficult to beat. If they happen to shoot well from three in any particular game, they're probably winning that game because they shoot so many shots from deep. So that variance makes me think Dallas maybe has the potential to upset some people that simply doesn't exist with some other teams.
I think with Dallas too, you step on the floor in just about any playoff series, and you have two of the best 4 or maybe 5 players in that series with Kyrie and Lucas. So yeah, I would. I love that pick as potential there. I'm going to take Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly out of the mix in the East. So for me, that's probably the Pacers. If the Knicks could make one more, if they've got one more big move in them, maybe the Knicks. I like a lot of their players there. Again, we're picking sleepers, so I don't think it'd be one of those two teams. And then in the West, like part of me wants to say the Clippers, but that feels like cheating. That's not really a sleeper. We've been expecting that. So I would say just because it doesn't feel like people believe in them, even though they're one of the best teams in the conference, Minnesota still feels like kind of a sleeper pick.
Okay.
Just, because I just don't know that people are fully bought in that they could be that team. I still believe in the Western Conference. It's Denver versus the field. I need to see teams beat Denver when it matters. Like, I just think the Nuggets are kind of in the arc with their team of don't really care about the regular season all that much. Like, we drop a game on the road at the end of a road trip, who cares? And just kind of do their thing. I think if this was a different NBA, we'd see Nuggets games where it'd be nobody's playing. They're all sitting tonight.
Yep.
Clearly, we're not really allowed to do that anymore. So I don't know that we'd see that, now this year. But yeah, I'm there with Denver. I just believe in them. It's the best starting 5 in the league when they're all there and healthy.
Oh yeah, and they've got tons of continuity and chemistry, and they're going to be difficult.
Jokic and Murray, and
John said, if the goal is a championship for the Lakers, what moves need to be made? Because as is, this is not a contender. I mean, I think a big part of it is LeBron and Anthony Davis have to be healthy come playoff time. That's probably the biggest piece, more than any move that you're going to make. Other than that, I don't see like you're not going to get Donovan Mitchell here at the trade deadline. You don't even have enough assets to trade for him. I don't see that kind of move. So if people are saying, well, they're done unless they go get another huge superstar that's going to change everything for them, okay, then they're done. If that's your opinion, because that's not out there. You're not getting a Donovan Mitchell. You're not getting that top tier type of guy, even if we want to call Donovan Mitchell like more of a 1B guy. That's not, number one, that guy isn't out there. Number two, if he was out there, the Lakers don't have the assets for that player. What they have to do is try to do some things along the margins. DeJounte Murray is probably the biggest name they could potentially go and get. But if they're not able to work something out there, it's a matter of finding, first and foremost, two-way players, guys who can play both sides of the ball. They've had an issue with too many guys who play just one side of the ball and trying to mix and match those guys. That type of situation gets exploited a lot in the postseason. So it's a matter of finding true two-way players on the trade market, and then go from there. And you got to hope LeBron and AD are healthy and can continue to be dominant come postseason.
I don't really have a lot to add. I would, if it was the right deal, I would still consider the Zach LaVine trade, only because I feel like when things get sideways for the Lakers, it's when they don't score enough. And at least he's going to give you that. But it's got to be the right kind of deal. I'm not giving up Austin Reeves and a bunch of super great stuff for him. I'm D'Angelo Russell, and then piece together whatever the rest of it needs to be salary-wise. I know people have some dreams. I see it in your mentions just about every day of, can we get LaVine and Caruso and Drummond? Some gets thrown in there, which that one just makes me laugh because it feels like it's like, didn't we already do this already? And that's probably unfair because Andre Drummond is really playing well right now.
Yeah, he is.
He's probably the best backup center in the league. Like
and that's why people are asking about him.
So so if everybody's like, yeah, let's put it behind us. But if we were, was that 2 years ago? People, if you said like, hey, we can get Andre Drummond, like people who haven't watched in 2 years are like, what are we doing? No, like they lose their mind. So yeah, I think I just don't think that's realistic to start picking off all of that in a trade. I don't think the Lakers have enough to get all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's such a defeatist way of thinking about it. none of this matters if you don't believe LeBron and AD will be there in April, May, and June. If they're not going to be there for every single game, we could pick 10 teams and say the same thing.
Sure.
It's just,
yeah, if Giannis isn't there, then the Bucks aren't going anywhere, right?
I mean, with a lot of other teams, we have track record that those guys will be there. Right. And we have track record that LeBron and AD are there when it matters most. It's just, I don't know, man. It feels like we could probably go back and run 10 shows from last year that are, well, they're put themselves in a position where they're going to fight the whole way through. It feels like a little bit better shape because I think the West has come back a little bit at the bottom of the play, and they're not, all right, we got to climb 4 teams and, do all this just to get in the play in. Like that's a little different. But yeah, I don't know. They got to do something. I just don't know that they got to do the all-in move. Because I just don't. It's just not there right now. It has not made itself available.
What's the all-in move that's out there? It doesn't really exist. If you could tell me there's a 25-year-old superstar level player out there that they can get that's going to turn everything around, of course they would do that. They would do that and they'd say, cool, we've got our guy post LeBron now. We're going to put this guy next to AD and off we go. But that move isn't really out there. And if it was, I don't think they've got the assets to pull that off either. So instead it's more of a margins move. And then maybe to some degree it's let's hang on to future capital and see what we can do this summer as well. But yeah, I'm not expecting some like tear it down, everybody's gone type of move from the Lakers this year.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see. We just talked about this morning over on the NBA Next podcast on Spot Track. The Lakers are not going to do. They're not going to be as drastic as it was last year. No. Hey, this is hyperbolic, but last year was like, hey, everybody
like 6 players last year.
Yeah, everybody who is in LBJ, LeBron, and AD, you're all gone. And everybody knew was coming in, and forget the rest of you. See you later. That's going a little too far. I know some guys carried over, but it's that we're just not going to see that again. Like I just don't think they're gonna do that. Part of it is it's not quite as drastic, right? They're in the postseason right now. They're not just chasing that postseason. And again, I don't know that if there was the move that they could do that could get them into the actual playoffs, like up to 6 or higher, they do it. It's just not there.
Let's see. Could adding Max Christie seal a Murray deal? Potentially. I mean,
maybe
he's very good.
I think you and I, then some Lakers fans like Max Christie more than I think he's thought of like
around the league. I think the league hasn't quite caught up.
Yeah, Max Christie is not equal to like, hey, you could have a first round pick, but here's Max Christie. Like, it's not like that. Like, it's right. Also, I don't think on the Lakers side, I don't think their attitude is, oh, you want Max Christie? No, sorry, we're walking away from the
No, I don't think so either. I think his skill set is a great fit in terms of being a 3-and-D guy. He's 20, so he's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a bright future. I'm not saying he's going to be a star or even an all-star or anything, but I think he'll be a very good role player in the NBA for a long time. And he's shown some flashes of that. Honestly, if I'm the Lakers, I'm probably, unless the team wants to give me that kind of value for him, I'd rather hang on to him for a year or two, let him become what I think he's going to become in terms of being a very consistent role player for you. And then if you're going to move him at that point, that means you got to re-sign him this summer, but that's fine. I'd rather hang on to him for a bit and then see what he turns into. Because I think he's going to be a pretty consistent piece for a long time.
If he goes anywhere, I want it to be somewhere where he's going to play 25 minutes a game every night, and we just get to see what he really is. Like, if he's going to go somewhere.
All right. 2 nice guys said, how would you feel about Drummond and Torrey for Hayes, Reddish, and 1 or 2 second rounders?
I don't hate it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If Torrey Craig's going to be able to get back. Like, that's the one thing you got to make sure you get your hands on his medical, and you feel really good that Torrey Craig will be fully back.
Right.
Because right now he's hurt. If otherwise, that doesn't do anything for you. But if you could get him back, I don't hate that idea.
Yeah, it's not bad. Daniel, I saw Philly and Indy interested in making a move for Paul George in the offseason. Any chance? Halliburton, Paul George, and Siakam trio. I mean, that would be great and everything, but if you're the Clippers, like you would have to not be able to come to terms on an extension with Paul George. That's what would have to happen for them to be in that situation.
And Daniel, I think I know where you might have seen maybe some sloppy aggregation on this, because this was something that somebody threw out as more of a, well, if Paul George didn't want to go, like, Philly and I'm sure Indiana would love to have him back.
Sure.
And I heard that on a podcast. I think it might have been the Hoop Collective where somebody said it. That's why they're very cautious of saying those kind of things, because then it turns into sloppy aggregation of they're trying to make a move for him. And I'm sure both those teams would love to have Paul George. I just don't think that's like a real, like a rumor that anybody tried to even put out there.
Should the Lakers go after Chris Paul if he's bought out? Sure, why not? I mean,
depends on what else they do. If they
right.
end up over they can't go over the apron because they're hard capped. So yeah, I mean, I guess sure, why not? Right? It'd be kind of funny if after more than a decade, this is when he finally lands with the Lakers. That would kind of make me laugh. Like, well, we finally got here. It only took.
Well, I mean, they did it with Carmelo Anthony. It was finally Carmelo Anthony as a Laker, and and that one
took everybody else retiring. That was part of those trade talks. Like, and here we are.
Chris said Heald and Obi Toppin for Rozier. I don't know if I like that for the Pacers.
Yeah, I probably pass just because Rozier, I don't know that he gives you enough of what you need on that team as far as a consistent. I'd rather have Heald, because Rozier, a lot of his benefit comes from having the ball a lot, and Halliburton and Siakam are going to eat up most of the usage. So now it's about shooters around those two. Put shooters around them. I'd probably rather have Heald. I don't hate it. The value's fine. I'd probably not.
All right, we're going to do a couple more, and then we'll call it a show here. Have you heard anything about the Nets? I'm going to be honest, it's very hard to watch this team. We're the most directionless team in the NBA right now. They've got some decisions to make. That's pretty clear. They've got to make some decisions. They've got to figure out what it is they want to do. And those are decisions that may not come till this summer. Like, it's possible that they make a move or two, but they really have to figure out, are we going to be good in time for guys like Mikal Bridges to really be part of our next successful team? Or is it going to take a few years for us to get there and then make some tough choices around that?
We've talked about it quite a bit here, but it's worth saying again, because I know we have a whole bunch of new people here watching. And shout out to everybody who showed up today in the middle of the day on a Friday. If you're new, this is what we do every Friday, Front Office Friday. We have a lot of fun right around this time, usually in the early afternoon hours on the East Coast, right before lunchtime on the West Coast. Bridges and Johnson are not 22-year-olds. They're older. So I think you got to make your decisions around to your point. What are these guys going to be? A lot of teams would love to get Nick Claxton. So I think there has to be a real discussion on what are we willing to pay Nick Claxton in free agency this summer. He's not restricted this time around. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. So that's a big question. So I think that's something you really got to take a look at. And then I think you really have to be very open to just about anybody else is there. Bridges, Johnson, Claxton to some degree, unless the team's really there, you're not sold on paying them. Everybody else, I'd be open to moving. I wouldn't, even blink an eye. I'm not giving anybody away, but I wouldn't be precious about any of those guys' trade value.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Cameron said, will any injured players be traded for teams looking to shed salaries, such as Robert Williams, Steven Adams? They can be. Teams just have to waive their physical, but they can be traded. Will they? I'm more skeptical on that.
Yeah, it wasn't even really an injury, but the one guy who would have made sense for something like this would have been Ricky Rubio, just because it was very clear he probably wasn't coming. So I think that would have been a move. So I think that, but yeah, I mean, Memphis, you're not adding anything back right now because you're kind of reprioritizing what your season's going to be. Portland, you're already there. You might as well keep Robert Williams and see what it looks like, on the back end of that. So,
all right, last one here. Brian said Pistons fire sale. Burks to the Lakers, Stewart to Golden State Warriors. I mean, the Pistons, everybody, they should be listening on any of their guys that are not their young guys, and even a few of the young guys they should be listing on. They want to be a buyer out of the market. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's what we've heard. They may end up being in the buyer position, but I do think that they should move on from some of their key veterans right now. Bojan Bogdanovic in particular, I think that it's time to move on from him if you can find a good deal, get some future assets, and start figuring out what this team's going to look like next season. Because this season, they're out there playing, but this season's over for them.
Yeah, Burks should be moved at a bare minimum. I would move other guys. Challenge with moving Stewart is he's poison pilled, so he's $5 million going out on one side, he's $13 million on the other end. So like, just when it's that big of an imbalance, it makes it a little bit harder. You almost have to have a trade exception to make a move like that work. So I don't know. I don't think he goes anywhere. I think that's, if they're going to move Isaiah Stewart, that becomes an off-season thing when he counts at the $15 million on his extension.
All right, we got one last one coming in.
All right, this is it. This is the buzzer beater. Don't put
this is the last one because we got to go. Miguel,
it's like an 8-team trade.
Miguel, so give me your thoughts on this trade. Lakers get Javon Carter, Nick Richards. Bulls get Duncan Robinson. Heat get PJ Washington, Taurean Prince, and Gabe Vincent. Hornets get Patrick Williams, Caleb Martin. That's a lot of people. Like,
yeah.
The phrase you hear a lot is 3-team deals or where trades go to die. A 4-team trade is even more unlikely. It does happen, obviously, and we just had a 3-team deal happen, but it's unlikely. That's just a lot of pieces moving.
I don't like that for the Lakers. I like Javon Carter and Nick Richards, but Taurean Prince has been a key shooter for the Lakers, so I don't think I'd give him up for Nick Richards. I don't know that that's the rebalancer you need there. Carter for Vincent, sure, that part's really good, but and the Bulls, like, why? No, I'd just stay out of that.
Yeah.
Miguel, are you a Heat fan? I'm guessing you're a Heat fan because this looks pretty good for Miami.
Miami get PJ Washington, Taurean, and they get Gabe Vincent back. And if Gabe Vincent comes back and he's healthy, and they just give up Duncan Robinson, is that right? Who am I missing there?
Caleb Martin.
Oh, Caleb Martin. I missed him at the end there. Yeah, okay. Caleb Martin's
I'm in now because he put the Martin twins back together. So back on.
That's right. All right.
Patrick Williams. I mean, that's okay. Somebody should, if they can snag Patrick Williams out of this, like let's go. Like,
yeah.
And Javon Carter, if you need a guard, go get him. Like Javon Carter's really good defender, good hits on and off ball. Yeah, hits the 3, tough guy, very easily acquirable contract. Not really playing in Chicago right now. Bulls, I know they're tough and everybody's kind of out on the Bulls. Kobe White playing pretty well.
He's been great.
And the last thing I'm going to say to wrap up the show, beyond thanks again, everybody's joined in.
Mm-hmm.
If you love basketball and you have time today, maybe after the show ends, you're like, I'm not going to start anything because it's late in the day on a Friday.
I'm not working anymore today.
Throw on the Thunder Jazz game from last night. That game was awesome. You might watch the first 5-8 minutes and be like, what the heck is he talking about? Because Utah got off to a slow start, but after they picked it up, that game was great. You saw young players making plays. If you weren't a Colin Sexton fan, you're going to come away a Colin Sexton fan. And if you were like, I want my team to go get him, you're going to be like coming back here next Friday and being like, Colin Sexton, give everything, for him. Like that's how good he was at the end of that game. So just check that out, man. That was such a great game. Great Babe says J-Dub turned it on. That's, for those who don't know all the nicknames, that's the wing Jalen Williams.
Yep.
He was undeniable in the fourth quarter. Got to where we wanted to go. So just go check it out, man. It was so good. Such a good game.
All right. I'm going to have to give that one a look. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We went a little overtime today, but do appreciate you coming in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button over on the YouTube channel if you're not a subscriber already. If anything big happens over the weekend, we'll jump on. Otherwise, till Monday, see ya and stay safe.